Welcome to this journey through the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, a guide to transforming not just your finances but your life. Introduction. The storm always comes when you least expect it. One moment, life feels secure, the bills are getting paid, the house feels steady. Then suddenly the wind shifts. A job is lost. An emergency hits. The bottom falls out of the economy. And in that instant, everything you thought was normal can be ripped away. That is where millions of people find themselves, realizing the financial house they built wasn't on rock, but on sand. This is where the Total Money Makeover begins. Dave Ramsey opens with a challenge. Personal finance isn't about complicated formulas or insider secrets. It isn't even mainly about numbers. It's about behavior. 80% of success with money, he insists, is driven by your daily choices, your willingness to change habits, your courage to look honestly in the mirror. The other 20%, that's head knowledge, the simple math most of us already know, but don't act on. Ramsey admits that he learned this the hard way. In his 20s, he was a real estate millionaire on paper, good at borrowing money, convinced that debt was his friend. Then it all collapsed. Lawsuits, foreclosures, bankruptcy, fear in his household, and the crushing weight of admitting his way wasn't working. Out of that wreckage, he discovered timeless principles, many borrowed from Scripture, many from the wisdom of grandparents, that would transform not only his life, but the lives of millions of others. This book is not meant to impress you with complexity. It will not drown you in financial jargon or deliver academic lectures on investing. Ramsey laughs at the snobbery of those who confuse sophistication with wisdom. Wealthy people, he reminds us, usually keep things simple. This book also isn't about some brand new discovery. As Ramsey quips, most of what he teaches is what your grandmother could have told you, with her teeth in. It isn't about hype or get-rich-quick schemes. Instead, it is a step-by-step process, a makeover that anyone can follow, no matter their income, background, or mistakes. He is also clear on what this book is not promising. It won't mislead you with unrealistic return claims, nor is it just a dry presentation of math. It isn't politically correct because it dares to talk about the emotional, relational, and even spiritual side of money. And it isn't written by someone without scars. Ramsey says he has a PhD in dumb. He has lived through financial collapse. He has felt the fear in his marriage when money nearly tore it apart. But he has also rebuilt debt-free with a plan that has worked for millions. The stories you will hear throughout are not theories. They are real lives, ordinary families who chose to live differently, who sacrificed, who pushed against the grain of a culture that glorifies debt and consumption. Some sold their cars. Some took on extra jobs. Some faced ridicule from family and friends who didn't understand. But they endured and they won. Their voices echo through these pages to remind you that transformation is possible. Then comes the warning. Economic storms will keep coming. If you've lived past 25, you've already seen several. The dot-com crash, the attacks of 9/11, the Great Recession, the COVID downturn. Each storm exposes who was prepared and who was not. As Warren Buffett famously put it, when the tide goes out, you can tell who was skinny dipping. Ramsey extends that image. When life's waters recede, many discover they've been pretending, living on myths, building houses of straw and sticks while mocking those who took the time to build with brick. During good times, even foolish choices can look smart. Even a turkey can fly in a tornado, he says. When the economy booms, people spend recklessly, borrow excessively, and assume it will never end. But when the winds shift, the lies are exposed. Just because you saw a turkey soaring in the storm doesn't mean turkeys can fly. Ramsey confesses he was once that turkey. Arrogant, borrowing heavily, convinced he was different. But the storm revealed his house of cards, and he had to start over with humility. His point is simple. Your financial plan must work in good times and in bad, or it doesn't work at all. One of the most striking stories he shares is about a man named Chris. During the Great Recession, Chris lost his corporate job. Many in his shoes would have panicked. But Chris had already completed his total money makeover. He was debt-free, his home paid for, his emergency fund secure. When his boss delivered the grim news, Chris smiled, hugged him, and asked, "How much is the severance?" That severance became the seed money for his own business, which quickly out-earned his old salary. The difference wasn't luck, it was preparation. The Total Money Makeover is about making sure you are ready when, not if, the storms come. It's about taking control of the things you can control: your spending, your saving, your choices, your behavior. Ramsey says bluntly, stop doing what broke people do and start doing what wealthy people do. So as this journey begins, Ramsey offers you hope, but not false hope. There is no magic, no shortcut, no secret formula. The motto you will hear again and again is simple. If you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. That means sacrificing now, choosing discipline now, so that in the future you and your family can experience freedom, generosity, and peace like you never imagined. This is the makeover of your financial life. It starts with honesty, with the courage to confront the person in the mirror. The challenge is you, but the reward is transformation. And now, with the foundation laid and the myths beginning to crumble, it's time to step into the first chapter, the moment where Dave Ramsey dares you to face the real challenge. The challenge of your life. Chapter 1. The Total Money Makeover Challenge. The scene opens at a kitchen table. Bills are spread out, the clock ticks, and dread fills the room. This was Dave Ramsey's reality in his 20s. Though on paper he was a millionaire, in truth he was as lost as a ball in tall weeds. Every month ended with more month than money. Every conversation with his wife Sharon spiraled into fear or fighting. It felt hopeless, like running endlessly on a wheel, working hard but never making progress. Ramsey calls this the normal American family. Too much debt, too little savings, no control. It's the cycle many live in. Car loans, mortgages, credit cards, and a vague hope that somehow it will all work out. But for him, it finally hit breaking point. He looked at his situation and shouted, "Enough! This stinks!" His way wasn't working, and he was sick and tired of being sick and tired. He tells of the financial collapse that followed. In their late 20s, he and Sharon went broke. From owning over $4 million worth of real estate, he spiraled into lawsuits, foreclosures, and bankruptcy. With a baby and a toddler at home, fear overwhelmed him. Yet, he says, hitting bottom was both the worst and the best thing that ever happened. It forced him to stop pretending and start searching for real answers. Ramsey's search led him not to Wall Street or some clever secret, but to a mirror. He realized the real problem was not the banks or the economy. It was the man shaving in the mirror every morning. He admits he had to face the truth. Personal finance is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge. Most people already know what they should do. Spend less than they earn, save, avoid debt, but they don't actually do it. The makeover challenge, then, is simple but hard. Can you control the person in the mirror? That's the enemy you must defeat. From there, Ramsey issues his rallying cry. The Total Money Makeover is not a theory. It isn't a gimmick. It's a proven, step-by-step plan that ordinary people have used to get out of debt, save money, and build wealth. Thousands of real families have followed it, sacrificing for a short time so they never have to sacrifice again. Their stories fill this book, and they stand as proof that the plan works. But he also warns, it isn't easy. This plan requires sacrifice, discipline, and the willingness to say a word most people avoid. No. No to the impulse purchase. No to the shiny car payment. No to the holiday you can't afford. He frames the challenge with a motto that will echo throughout every chapter. If you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. In other words, if you're willing to live with discipline and sacrifice now, you'll enjoy freedom and abundance later. Ramsey also reminds us that the makeover isn't just about money, it's about hope. He promises no magic formula and no false shortcuts. But he promises that if you take responsibility, stop blaming others, and follow the plan with intensity, you can change your life. He ends the chapter with a challenge. Stand up, face the mirror, and admit that the only person who can change your money story is you. Politicians can't do it. A dream job can't do it. The makeover begins with responsibility and honesty. That's the Total Money Makeover Challenge. And with that, he leaves us on the edge of the next step. Before you can run toward freedom, you must confront the obstacles holding you back. That journey starts with the first and most dangerous trap, denial. Chapter 2. Denial. I'm not that out of shape. The mirror doesn't lie. You can suck in your stomach, shift the angle, or convince yourself you look fine. But deep down, you know the truth. Financial denial works the same way. I'm doing okay, we tell ourselves. Everyone has a car payment, a mortgage, a few credit cards. That's denial, and it's poison. Dave Ramsey admits he lived there. Just like ignoring his body until it slid into flab, he ignored the warning signs in his money. The first step to change was admitting he was out of shape, physically and financially. Denial is comforting, but it's also deadly. The danger is that being broke often looks normal. Living with debt, an empty savings account, and credit cards pushed to the limit can feel normal because it blends in with everyone else's life. Neighbors even applaud it. But Ramsey warns, average is broke. If you settle for average, you settle for crisis waiting to happen. He shares stories to prove the point. Sarah and John looked like the perfect couple. Good jobs, a big house, shiny cars. Debt piled up, but they smiled through it until Sarah lost her job. With half their income gone, the house became a prison, the cars an anchor. For the first time, they faced the mirror honestly. Another couple looked equally successful. A $400,000 home, sharp clothes, new cars. Yet beneath the polish, they were buried in credit card balances and student loans, clinging to an almost empty bank account. Ramsey says plainly, if you bought it all with debt, you're not rich, you're faking it. Denial whispers lies. It says the water isn't that hot, even as the pot boils around you. It says, yes, it stinks, but it's my diaper and it's warm. We cling to comfort rather than face change, even when change is survival. But the cost of denial is always higher than the cost of honesty. Ramsey introduces Tony, a young man drowning in $23,000 of debt and trapped in gambling. He pretended it wasn't serious until the weight crushed him. Only when he admitted the truth did freedom begin. Ramsey insists most people won't change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. But why wait for foreclosure, repossession, or a layoff? Why wait for crisis to smash denial? Look in the financial mirror now. If you are in debt, if you have no savings, if your spending is out of control, you are not fine. You are financially overweight. The cure begins with confession. Admit it. Own it. Once you smash denial, you are free to start the makeover. In the next chapter, we'll confront the lies about debt itself, the myths that sound smart but quietly keep you broke. Chapter 3. Debt myths. Debt is not a tool. Lies about money often come disguised as wisdom. They are repeated so often, they sound like common sense. You'll always have a car payment. Credit cards are essential. Debt is leverage, the smart person's tool. These phrases echo in advertisements, spill from bank officers, and slip into conversations with friends at the dinner table. They sound safe. They sound normal. But Dave Ramsey exposes them as what they are, myths. And like all myths, they blind you to the truth. The most dangerous myth is also the most common. Debt is a tool. That simple sentence has justified millions of bad decisions. The truth? Debt magnifies risk. It promises leverage but delivers chains. Our grandparents didn't live that way. They saved, they waited, they paid in cash. But in the last 50 years, we've baptized debt as normal, even smart. Now we wear our slavery like a badge of honor and call it progress. Ramsey quotes the old proverb, "The borrower is slave to the lender." Slavery today doesn't come with shackles. It comes with signatures, contracts, and auto drafts. The masters are not plantation owners, but banks. Look at the marble buildings, the glass towers, the endless credit offers. Do we really believe those palaces were built to help us win? They were built from our bondage. The car payment myth. Few myths are more deeply embedded than the car payment. Dealers and lenders tell us it is as natural as the light bill. But Ramsey shows the trap. The average car payment in America is around $475 a month. If instead you invested that money, in just 10 years you could have over $60,000. In 20 years, more than $250,000. Think about that. A simple decision not to borrow for a car could fund retirement. A car payment is not normal, it is a wealth killer. He tells of a man named David who had driven finance cars his entire adult life. He finally decided to break the cycle. He sold his shiny vehicle, bought an older used car with cash, and started saving what he used to send to the bank. At first, he felt embarrassed, worried about what neighbors would think. But within 3 years, he was able to pay cash for a newer car outright and had savings left over. David said, "I thought I'd missed the car payment. What I missed was the stress." The credit card myth. Then there is the myth of the credit card. You need one for safety, for emergencies, for convenience, to build credit. Ramsey dismantles each excuse. Emergencies? That's why you save. Safety? Debit cards carry the same fraud protections. Convenience? Debit cards swipe just as easily. As for building credit, he laughs. Your FICO score is nothing more than an I love debt score. You don't need it. When you live debt-free, you don't apply for loans, so you don't need a score. He tells of Kelly, who prided herself on collecting reward points. She used her credit card for everything, convinced she was gaming the system. But month after month, balances lingered. The interest she paid silently devoured any benefit from free flights. One day, she added up the total interest charges from the past 5 years. It was over $8,000. Her reward? A couple flights worth maybe $500 each. "I thought I was clever," she admitted. "Really, I was a sucker." Here's the psychology. Debt gives the illusion of power. Swiping a card feels like control. It feels like you're choosing, when really you are surrendering. Borrowed money provides an immediate thrill but hides the long-term drain. That's why myths endure. They play on our emotions. Debt whispers, "You deserve this now. You can worry later." The culture applauds, but your future self is left holding the bill. The student loan myth. Another devastating myth is that you can't go to college without borrowing. Millions of young people sign their names before they've even learned how money works. They graduate with a degree, and with chains that can last decades. Ramsey shares stories of graduates earning modest incomes but carrying $60,000 or more in student loans. Their careers began in a financial hole so deep that buying a home or saving for retirement felt impossible. He pushes back hard. There are other ways. Work while in school. Start at community college. Apply for scholarships. Choose a less expensive university. It may take longer. It may require sacrifice. But it is worth it. Chains are heavier than hard work. The psychology here is heartbreaking. Young people are sold a dream. Borrow now, and your future will be bright. But the dream often turns into dread. The degree may open doors, but the debt slams them shut. Instead of freedom, they inherit fear. Instead of opportunity, they inherit obligation. The myth sold them a future, but what they bought was slavery. The consolidation myth. Then comes the myth of debt consolidation. The pitch sounds wonderful. Roll all your payments into one tidy bill. But Ramsey says it's nothing more than rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. the iceberg still hits. Consolidation rarely addresses behavior. It lowers the monthly bill but stretches the timeline so you stay in debt longer and pay more overall. People feel relief, but it is false relief. Within a year, many are back in the same mess, only deeper. Why does it appeal? Because it soothes shame. It makes you feel in control again, but it doesn't fix the problem. Consolidation is emotional Novocaine. It dulls the pain without curing the disease. The 0% myth. Retailers use another trap. 0% financing. Furniture, electronics, even dental work, by now, no interest. It sounds perfect, but Ramsey warns it is a baited hook. Miss one fine print condition, and the back-charged interest slams down at outrageous rates. He tells of a young family who financed a living room set this way. One late payment triggered 24% interest backdated to day one. The deal cost them hundreds more than buying used furniture with cash. Stores are not charities. If they advertise no interest, you can be sure they've already rigged the game in their favor. Psychologically, 0% offers hit the part of us that loves to feel clever. It feels like beating the system, but the house always wins. Retailers design these offers knowing human behavior. They bank on distraction, forgetfulness, and overconfidence. They know most people will trip, and when they do, profit pours in. The rich use debt myth. Finally, there's the seductive myth that wealthy people use debt to get richer. Ramsey admits some sophisticated investors do use leverage, but he warns the average family is not a hedge fund. What works for the ultra-wealthy can destroy ordinary households. Debt multiplies risk. When you gamble with borrowed money, you gamble with your future. If you don't have cash, you don't have margin. Breaking free. Ramsey tells of Chris and Julia who finally woke up to the truth. They cut up their credit cards, sold the finance car, and swore off debt. Their friends thought they were strange. But as the months passed, the weight lifted. For the first time in their marriage, they felt peace. Julia said, "It's not just the money. It's the freedom. We don't owe anyone anymore." The psychology of breaking free is just as important as the math. Debt pretends to give you comfort, status, even identity. But once the chains are cut, people discover the opposite: peace, pride, clarity, and strength. The stress of monthly payments fades. The constant background anxiety, "Will I make it this month?" disappears, and what replaces it is hope. The myths had promised convenience, normalcy, even sophistication. But once broken, the truth was clear. Debt is not a tool, it is a trap. Every payment you send away is a piece of tomorrow you give up. Believing the myth that debt builds your future is like believing a cage is a playground. Freedom never comes from chains. Ramsey dares you to think differently. Step away from the herd. Refuse the myths. Say no to what the culture calls normal. He promises, not only can you live without debt, you must if you want real change. The myths about debt are unmasked. But myths don't end here. Ahead lies another set of lies, more subtle and enticing, the myths about money itself. These whisper promises of wealth, secrets of the rich, shortcuts that always turn to dust. In the next chapter, we'll confront the money myths and uncover why chasing shortcuts leaves people broke and broken. Chapter 4. Money Myths, the Non-Secrets of the Rich. The lies about debt are powerful, but they're only half the battle. Once you've swallowed the myths of borrowing, another set of illusions waits to catch you, the myths about money itself. These are the promises of quick wealth, the secrets of the rich, the whispers that say if you just try this one trick, your life will change overnight. Dave Ramsey calls them what they are, fantasies. We live in a culture addicted to shortcuts. We want the body without the workout, the degree without the study, the wealth without the discipline. Advertisers know this, and they flood us with magic formulas, the hot stock tip, the latest multi-level marketing program, the the lottery ticket that will make all our problems vanish. The problem is simple, none of it works. Ramsey tells of men and women who chased these illusions. He recalls one caller to his radio show who had lost nearly $20,000 in a get-rich-quick scheme. The pitch was slick, the promise irresistible. But when the dust settled, there was nothing left but shame. That's the psychology of these myths. They prey on our desire to leapfrog the hard work. The myth of the secret formula. One of the strongest lies is that the wealthy know a secret formula. We imagine they sit in private rooms, swapping codes and tricks to beat the system. Ramsey laughs at the thought. The truth is, wealthy people usually live by painfully boring habits. They spend less than they earn. They save. They invest steadily, year after year. No magic, no mystery. The so-called secrets are simple disciplines practiced with consistency. He reminds us that most millionaires don't look like the people on magazine covers. They don't live in flashy houses or drive brand-new cars. They live below their means. They focus on long-term goals, not short-term thrills. The myth of a hidden formula keeps people chasing shadows while ignoring the ordinary habits that actually build wealth. The lottery lie. Ramsey also calls out the lottery. The poor and middle class buy tickets in the desperate hope of escape. It's a tax on the poor and people who can't do math, he says bluntly. Statistically, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than to win. Yet millions line up at convenience stores, handing over money that could have been saved or invested. It's not just bad math, it's bad hope. The lottery sells the dream of instant wealth, but what it delivers is financial decay. He tells of a couple who confess that they spent over $300 a month on lottery tickets. $300. That's nearly $4,000 a year wasted on fantasies. Had they invested that money steadily, they would have built a genuine nest egg. Instead, they chase smoke. The multi-level marketing mirage. Another common trap is the myth of easy wealth through multi-level marketing. Now, Ramsey is quick to note, some people do make money selling products this way, but the vast majority don't. The promises are inflated, the success stories cherry-picked. He's spoken with countless callers who drained savings, maxed out cards, and strained friendships chasing the dream of downline riches. Most walked away broke and embarrassed. The psychology here is simple. These programs promise community, purpose, and status. They make you feel like you're part of something bigger. But in reality, most of the money flows upward while the base struggles. It's not a path to wealth, it's a treadmill of false hope. The myth of risk-free wealth. Then there's the myth that you can build wealth without risk or sacrifice. Infomercials, seminars, and late-night gurus promise passive income, insider tips, no effort required. Ramsey warns, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Real wealth always requires discipline, delayed gratification, hard work, steady investing. The lie of effortless wealth keeps people broke because it distracts them from the habits that actually work. Real secrets of the rich. So what do the truly wealthy do? Ramsey says it plainly, they budget. They live below their means. They invest consistently over decades. They give generously. They don't chase magic, they practice maturity. That is the real secret, and it isn't flashy enough to sell on late-night television. He shares the story of a couple who quietly built wealth by following these principles. They drove older cars, avoided debt, invested faithfully. By the time they reached their 50s, they were millionaires. Neighbors thought they were ordinary. Friends never guessed. But while others chased myths, they built real freedom. The emotional cost of myths. Ramsey warns that chasing money myths is not only financially destructive, it's emotionally exhausting. Each failed scheme leaves people ashamed, embarrassed, and less likely to trust themselves. Hope turns into cynicism. Belief turns into despair. That's why it matters to expose these lies. You cannot build wealth on illusions. You must build on truth. The debt myths enslave you with chains. The money myths seduce you with fantasies. Both keep you broke. But once you shatter them, you can begin the real makeover. And now, with myths out of the way, Ramsey turns to the practical. What do you actually do first? Where do you begin the makeover in real, tangible steps? In the next chapter, we'll confront the excuses and misinformation that keep people financially stuck and learn why ignorance is never bliss when it comes to money. Chapter 5. 2 more hurdles: ignorance and keeping up with the Joneses. Some traps are obvious. You can see the chains of debt. You can feel the sting of an empty wallet. But other enemies are quieter, hiding in plain sight. Dave Ramsey says 2 of the deadliest hurdles on the road to financial freedom are ignorance and the desperate urge to keep up with the Joneses. The hurdle of ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean stupidity. It means not knowing. Most people simply don't understand how money works. Schools rarely teach it. Parents often don't model it. And so, generations stumble forward without tools, repeating the same mistakes. Ramsey admits he himself once lived in ignorance, believing myths about debt, credit, and wealth until reality forced him to learn otherwise. He tells of a couple who earned strong incomes, yet never seemed to make progress. They assumed more money would solve their problems. But as their pay increased, so did their spending. No one had ever taught them to budget, to save, or to plan. They weren't dumb. They were uninformed. And without knowledge, they drifted deeper into frustration. Ignorance keeps people passive. It makes them victims of salesmen, bankers, and advertisers. Without understanding, you believe the pitch that a new car is affordable because the monthly payment fits. You believe the myth that you need a credit score. You believe the myth that debt is normal. Ramsey insists, once you learn the truth, you can never go back. Knowledge makes you dangerous to lenders, to marketers, and to the lies that enslave. The Joneses' illusion. But even knowledge isn't enough if you fall into the next trap, keeping up with the Joneses. It's the urge to match the neighbors, to prove your worth through possessions. They buy a bigger house, so you want one too. They drive new cars, take expensive holidays, upgrade their kitchens, and you feel pressure to do the same. Ramsey points out the irony. The Joneses are usually broke. Their wealth is an illusion propped up by debt. Competing with them is like running a race where the finish line doesn't exist. No matter how hard you try, someone will always have more. He shares the story of a family who stretched themselves to move into a prestigious neighborhood. They wanted to give their kids the best and to look successful among friends. But the big mortgage, luxury cars, and private school bills crushed them. When the husband's job shifted, their fragile world collapsed. The Joneses weren't worth chasing. The psychology is powerful. We equate possessions with identity. We fear being judged if we drive an older car or show up in clothes that aren't brand new. But Ramsey insists, true wealth has nothing to do with appearances. It's about freedom. He reminds listeners of his motto, if you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. That means sacrificing now, ignoring the Joneses, so that later you can enjoy peace and independence. Breaking the hurdles. Ignorance is cured by learning. You don't need a degree in finance, just basic understanding and the willingness to act on it. And the Joneses? They disappear the moment you stop caring about their opinion. Ramsey says bluntly, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Once you see the insanity, you're free. Knowledge and courage together knock down these hurdles. And with them out of the way, the path is clear to begin the real makeover. In the next chapter, we'll start the first baby step, saving $1,000 as fast as possible, the starter emergency fund that protects you from life's surprises. Chapter 6. Save $1,000 fast. Walk before you run. Every great journey begins with a first step. For Dave Ramsey's plan, that step is simple but powerful. Save $1,000 as quickly as you can. It's not glamorous. It's not complicated. but it's the foundation of everything to come. Why 1,000? Because life happens. Cars break down. Kids get sick. The boiler quits on the coldest night of winter. Without even a small cushion, you are forced back into the arms of debt. A credit card, a payday loan, a frantic borrowing from family. Ramsey says you cannot build financial freedom while your first response to crisis is to swipe a card. That's why baby step 1 is to create a starter emergency fund. Why start here? Some people ask, why not pay off debt first? Ramsey's answer is sharp, because emergencies don't wait. If you start attacking debt without any safety net, the first bump in the road will send you straight back into borrowing. The $1,000 fund is like a guardrail. It protects you from sliding back into the ditch. And why not save more? Because at this stage, the goal is speed, not perfection. You don't need a year's worth of expenses yet. You just need enough to cover the average hiccup in life. $1,000 is big enough to keep you from running to Visa, small enough that you can save it fast. How to build it quickly. Ramsey insists you should scrape this money together with intensity. Sell something. Pick up over time. Take on an extra job. Skip restaurants, cancel subscriptions, hold a garage sale. He tells of families who found their $1,000 in days by selling unused clutter. One man sold his motorcycle. Another family sold jewelry. A teenager saved it from part-time work. The point isn't the method. The point is urgency. He even suggests getting radical. Deliver pizzas at night. Work Saturdays. Clean houses. Babysit. Walk dogs. Drive for extra shifts. You are not in a marathon yet, you are in a sprint, Ramsey says. This is about focus. Your emergency fund doesn't care how the money arrives, it only cares that you fight for it. One caller to his show explained how she and her husband sold almost half the things in their house. They parted with old electronics and used furniture, even designer handbags. Within 10 days, they had their $1,000. She laughed. I thought I'd miss the stuff. I don't. What I really missed was peace of mind. Now I have it. Stories of change. Ramsey shares the story of a couple who had always leaned on credit cards for every emergency. They lived paycheck to paycheck, and any surprise expense threw them into panic. When they followed baby step 1, they sold old furniture, worked extra hours, and scraped together their fund in 2 weeks. The first time the car broke down after that, they paid cash from their emergency fund. For the first time in their marriage, a crisis didn't create new debt. The sense of relief was overwhelming. Another caller to Ramsey's show confessed that he thought saving $1,000 was impossible. He was barely making ends meet. But Ramsey challenged him to cut everything extra, cable, eating out, even his daily coffee. Within a month, he had saved more than he ever thought possible. He said, I realized it wasn't about money. It was about choices. And there was the single mom who felt utterly defeated by bills. Ramsey told her to get focused, list out things she could sell, and take on weekend shifts. In 3 weeks, she had her fund. She said the money itself mattered less than what it represented, control. She was no longer a victim of circumstance. The psychology of the emergency fund. This step is more about psychology than math. Debt lives in crisis. Emergencies force people back into borrowing. But when you have $1,000 set aside, you have breathing room. You have dignity. You stop feeling like life is one missed paycheck away from disaster. Ramsey calls it Murphy repellent. Murphy's Law says if something can go wrong, it will. He jokes that when you don't have an emergency fund, Murphy moves into your spare bedroom with all his cousins. But once you build your fund, it's like putting Murphy's bags out on the porch. Problems may still come, but you can handle them without panic. The change is deeper than the bank account. Couples say arguments decrease. Stress fades. Confidence grows. Suddenly, you are no longer powerless when the washing machine dies or when the car refuses to start. You don't panic, you write a check. And that changes everything. Walking before you run. This step is called walk before you run because it teaches you discipline before the bigger battles. It's a warm-up for the debt snowball. It builds the muscle of sacrifice and the taste of victory. Once you prove you can save $1,000, you're ready for the long haul of paying off debt. Ramsey reminds us, don't get distracted. Don't try to jump ahead. Some people are tempted to start investing or to save more. He says stop. Follow the plan. Save the starter fund quickly, then move on to attacking debt with everything you have. The steps are designed to work in order. Trust the process. A foundation of hope. Baby step 1 is more than numbers. It's about momentum. Ramsey says people often call into his show crying when they complete this step. Not because $1,000 makes them rich, but because it makes them believe. For the first time, they see a light at the end of the tunnel. It is the first proof that you are not trapped, that change is possible, that debt no longer gets the final word. The Starter Emergency Fund is just that, starter. Bigger reserves will come later. But without this first stone in place, the whole building wobbles. With it, you have a foundation strong enough to carry the weight of the journey ahead. In the next chapter, we'll unleash the debt snowball, an unstoppable force that wipes out debt step by step until you are free. Chapter 7. The debt snowball lose weight fast. Really, now comes the moment most people have been waiting for, the attack on debt. You've built your $1,000 starter emergency fund. That was the foundation. Now it's time for demolition. Dave Ramsey calls it the debt snowball, a strategy that has set millions free. Why the snowball works. The method is simple. List all your debts except the house, from the smallest balance to the largest. Ignore the interest rates. Pay the minimum on every debt except the smallest. Then throw every extra dollar you can find at that smallest debt until it's gone. Once it's wiped out, take the money you were paying on it and roll it into the next debt. Each victory builds momentum, like a snowball rolling downhill, growing larger and faster with every turn. Critics argue that mathematically it makes more sense to tackle the debt with the highest interest rate. Ramsey doesn't disagree with the math, he disagrees with the psychology. If personal finance were only about numbers, no one would be in debt in the first place. The truth is we need wins. Quick victories give us hope, and hope keeps us moving. Pay off a small debt fast, and you'll feel a rush of motivation. That momentum carries you into the next one. The psychology of momentum. Ramsey says personal finance is 20% head knowledge and 80% behavior. The debt snowball speaks directly to behavior. It creates visible progress. Each balance eliminated is a celebration, a marker that you are not stuck. That sense of accomplishment builds confidence, and confidence fuels perseverance. He tells of a family burdened with several credit cards, a car loan, and a student loan. Their smallest debt was just a $500 department store card. They attacked it with everything they had. Yard sales, overtime, no eating out. Within a month, the card was gone. It wasn't much money, but the psychological impact was enormous. They shouted, danced, even framed the final statement marked paid in full. That moment gave them the fire to keep going. 2 years later, they were debt-free. How to build your snowball. List your debts. Put them on paper. Face them. Ramsey says many people feel sick, seeing it all written down, but it's necessary. Order them, smallest to largest. Ignore interest rates for now. The key is momentum. Pay minimums on everything but the smallest. Keep the wolves at bay while you focus your attack. Attack the smallest debt with intensity. Sell something, work overtime, throw every dollar at it. Roll the payment into the next debt. Each victory adds fuel. The snowball grows. Ramsey often describes it like a game. Every time you kill a debt, you free up more money to attack the next one. What felt impossible at the start begins to feel unstoppable. Stories of freedom. One caller to Ramsey's show shared how her family paid off over $38,000 in just 18 months using the debt snowball. She said it was like watching a snowball roll down a hill. It just kept getting bigger and faster. Once we knocked out the first 2 debts, we couldn't wait to hit the next. Another story came from a man who paid off 6 figures of student loans. It took years, but he started with the smallest loans. $1,200 here, $3,500 there. Each one erased gave him energy. By the time he faced the $40,000 loan, he had thousands of dollars of freed-up payments to throw at it. The snowball that started as a trickle ended as an avalanche. And then there was the young couple who sold nearly everything that wasn't nailed down. They held yard sales every weekend, worked side jobs, and lived on bare minimums. Friends teased them for their sacrifices, but when they called Ramsey's show to scream, "We're debt-free," the joy in their voices said it all. They didn't just gain financial relief, they gained confidence in themselves. Sacrifice and intensity. The snowball works only if you attack with passion. Ramsey says this step is where beans and rice and beans comes in. That means sacrifice. Cut luxuries. Sell the car with the payment. Cancel cable. Eat at home. Work weekends. Do whatever it takes. Debt doesn't go away politely. It must be destroyed. He recalls a family who sold their fancy SUV, downsized their home, and took side jobs. Friends thought they were crazy. But in just 3 years, they shouted, "We're debt-free," on Ramsey's radio show. They described the joy of writing their final check. It wasn't about the money. It was about reclaiming their lives. The turning point. Something shifts when you're in the snowball. At first, it feels impossible. But with each victory, you realize the truth. You don't owe forever. Debt isn't destiny. You begin to imagine a life with no payments, no collectors, no anxiety at the mailbox. Ramsey says he has seen tears flow as people cut up their last credit card or mail the last check. The chains fall and freedom rushes in. The debt snowball is more than a financial plan, it's a battle cry. The goal ahead. The snowball continues until every debt but the mortgage is gone. For some, it takes a year. For others, 5 or more. But the principle never changes. Smallest to largest, step by step, momentum building until the last debt crumbles. The debt snowball is where ordinary families do extraordinary things. It turns desperation into discipline, and discipline into freedom. Each paid in full notice is a step toward peace. Each debt destroyed, a reminder that you are stronger than you thought. And once the snowball has done its work, you're ready for the next stage, building a full emergency fund that can carry you through life's storms without fear. In the next chapter, we'll move from defense to security, saving 3 to 6 months of expenses, a shield strong enough to protect your family from life's biggest emergencies. Chapter 8. Finish the emergency fund. Kick Murphy out. You've smashed through the debt snowball. The cards are gone, the loans destroyed, the chains broken. For the first time in years, your paycheck belongs entirely to you. But freedom without protection is fragile. One crisis, one job loss, one broken leg, one busted transmission, and you could tumble right back into the ditch. That's why baby step 3 is so vital. It's time to finish the emergency fund, and as Dave Ramsey says, kick Murphy out of your guest room. Who is Murphy? Murphy is that troublemaker from Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. When you're broke, it feels like Murphy moves in with you, bringing his cousins, his in-laws, and his dog. The car dies, the boiler leaks, the fridge quits, and it all happens in the same week. Ramsey jokes that without savings, Murphy sets up camp in your spare bedroom. But with a full emergency fund, you can evict him once and for all. Why $1,000 wasn't enough? The starter fund in baby step 1 was only a quick guardrail. It kept you from swiping a card for small emergencies. But $1,000 won't carry you through a layoff, a medical bill, or months of lost income. Ramsey warns, if you stop here, you'll always be one big storm away from slavery. That's why the next step is to save 3 to 6 months of household expenses. Notice the word expenses. Not your income, not your dreams, just what it takes to keep your household running. Add up your essentials: housing, food, utilities, transport, insurance. Multiply that number by 3, then by 6. Somewhere in that range is your target. If you have 2 steady jobs in secure fields, 3 months might be enough. If you're self-employed, rely on commissions, or have a single-income household, lean closer to 6. The point is not perfection, it's security. Stories of safety. Ramsey shares stories of families who completed this step and then faced disaster without fear. One man lost his job but had 5 months of expenses saved. Instead of panic, he had breathing room. He used the time to find better work, and his family never missed a payment. Another couple faced a medical emergency. The bills stacked up, but their fully funded emergency account absorbed the blow. No debt collectors, no begging family for help, no sleepless nights. They described it as the first time in their lives that money didn't control them, even in crisis. And countless callers to Ramsey's show described the calm that comes after this step. One woman said, "I don't walk around scared anymore. I no longer feel trapped by the what-ifs of life." That's the real power of finishing the emergency fund. Building the shield. So how do you get there? Ramsey says it's simple. Take the money you were throwing at debt and redirect it into savings until you hit your number. The discipline is the same. Beans and rice, no new gadgets, no holidays on credit. You've already learned intensity in the debt snowball. Now use that same fire to build your shield. He warns, don't drift here. Many people pay off debt and then relax. They feel free and want to celebrate. But this is the most dangerous time. Without the emergency fund, freedom can vanish in an instant. Stay focused. Keep the momentum. Practical tips include automating your savings, cutting back discretionary spending, and selling unused items. Every dollar saved is a brick in the wall between you and disaster. The psychology of peace. The financial benefit is obvious, but the psychological transformation is even greater. With a full emergency fund, fear loosens its grip. Arguments in marriages decrease. Confidence grows. Instead of wondering, what if the car breaks? You simply fix it. Instead of dreading the next redundancy notice at work, you know your family won't collapse. Ramsey says, when you have 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in the bank, Murphy packs up and leaves. That's the moment when stress is replaced with peace, when financial storms still come, but you remain standing. Ready for the future. Completing this step is a rite of passage. It marks the end of survival mode. You're no longer just clawing your way out of debt. You're standing on solid ground. From here, the makeover shifts gears. The focus turns from defense to offense. Your money will no longer only protect you. Soon, it will begin to grow for you. In the next chapter, we'll move into investing, baby step 4. It's time to take the dollars that once served debt and put them to work building wealth for your future. Chapter 9. Maximize retirement investing. Be financially healthy for life. You've fought through the trenches of debt. You've built your emergency shield. Now the makeover shifts gears. This is where you stop playing defense and start building offense. Ramsey calls it baby step 4. Invest 15% of your income into retirement. Why 15%? The number isn't random. It's the sweet spot Ramsey found after years of research and coaching families. Too little, and you'll never build enough wealth to retire with dignity. Too much, and you'll starve other important steps like saving for children's education or paying off your home. 15% strikes the balance, serious enough to make a difference, realistic enough to sustain. Ramsey is clear. This is not about gambling on hot stocks or chasing fads. It's about steady, disciplined investing over decades. He says wealth doesn't come from tricks, it comes from patience and consistency. Why not wait? Some argue that they'll invest later, once things calm down. Ramsey laughs at this excuse. Later never comes. He reminds us that time is the most powerful ingredient in investing. The earlier you begin, the more compound growth works in your favor. Money set aside in your 30s grows exponentially more than money set aside in your 50s. Waiting costs far more than you realize. He shares the story of two friends. One started investing $3,000 a year at age 19 and stopped at 26. The other waited until 27 and invested the same amount every year until retirement. The one who started earlier and invested less overall ended up with more money. Why? Because time multiplies money. Where to invest? Ramsey's plan is simple. Using tax-advantaged retirement plans such as workplace pensions, standard retirement accounts, or Roth accounts. Choose mutual funds with a long track record, spread across growth and income, aggressive growth, international, and small-cap funds. The point is diversification and discipline, not chasing the latest craze. He warns against trying to outsmart the market or obsessing over quick wins. Ordinary people who invest steadily, paycheck after paycheck, outperform the gamblers. Ramsey insists, you don't get rich quick. You get rich slow. Psychology of investing. The biggest battle here is not knowledge, it's fear. Many people freeze because markets rise and fall. Ramsey reminds listeners that downturns are normal. The only people who get hurt on a roller coaster are those who jump off mid-ride. Stay in your seat. Keep investing. Over time, the market has always gone up. This step isn't just about retirement, it's about freedom. It's about knowing that one day you won't have to depend on Social Security or your children. It's about dignity in later years. Stories of hope. Ramsey tells of callers who followed this plan faithfully. One man in his 50s called to say he'd become a millionaire simply by investing 15% every year, never missing, never panicking. Another family said the biggest gift was not the money itself, but the confidence that their future was secure. The goal ahead. Baby step 4 plants the seeds of long-term wealth. You've moved beyond survival, beyond even security. Now you're building for the decades ahead, so that one day you can not only retire comfortably, but give generously. In the next chapter, we'll turn from retirement to the next generation, saving for your children's education without the chains of debt. Chapter 10. College funding. Make sure the kids are fit too. Debt-free. Emergency fund in place. Retirement investments rolling. By now, your financial life has muscle and stability. But for many families, there's another dream and another potential trap. Helping children with higher education. Ramsey calls this baby step 5, saving for your kids' college without creating debt. The college debt crisis. Ramsey doesn't mince words. Student loans are one of the most aggressive forms of debt in America. Parents borrow, children borrow, and generations carry the weight of payments. Families convince themselves it's normal or the only way. But normal is broke. Ramsey insists there is a better way. College can be paid for without debt. It just takes planning, discipline, and creativity. He shares story after story of young adults who graduated debt-free, not because their parents were rich, but because the family planned ahead and made sacrifices. Some worked part-time jobs, others chose affordable schools, and many parents had started saving years earlier. The result, young people beginning life free, not shackled to decades of payments. How much to save? Ramsey recommends focusing on retirement before saving for college. Why? Because there are no scholarships for old age. Once you've set aside 15% of your income for retirement, baby step 4, then, and only then, turn to college funding. So how much? There's no one-size answer, but Ramsey suggests using tax-advantaged accounts designed for education. In the U.S., That means plans like educational savings accounts or 529s, which grow tax-free when used for education. The key principle: save steadily and start as early as possible. Even small monthly contributions multiply over time. Smarter choices about school. Funding isn't just about savings, it's about choices. Ramsey urges families to reject the myth that an expensive private school automatically guarantees success. The truth is, most employers care more about your degree than where you earned it. A state university, a community college for the first 2 years, or a school with scholarships can provide the same education at a fraction of cost. He recalls a caller whose daughter had been accepted to 2 schools, one prestigious private college with a $30,000 annual price tag, and a state university costing less than half. Ramsey told the family plainly, "Don't mortgage your future for a logo on a sweatshirt." They chose the state school, and the daughter graduated debt-free. The role of the student. Children must also have skin in the game. Ramsey encourages teenagers to work during the summers, apply for scholarships, and take part-time jobs if necessary. These aren't punishments, they build character. A student who works for their degree often values it more. And graduating without debt means they start adult life on solid ground, not buried in payments. He shares the story of a young man who worked nights at a grocery store and attended community college before transferring to a 4-year university. It wasn't glamorous, but he graduated debt-free. Years later, while his friends were still writing student loan checks, he was buying his first home. Peace of mind for parents. Parents often feel guilty if they can't cover the full cost of university. Ramsey reassures them, it's not about paying for everything, it's about helping wisely. Save what you can, guide your children to smart choices, and refuse to let debt destroy their future. Your job isn't to hand them luxury, it's to set them up for freedom. The bigger picture. Baby Step 5 is about more than tuition. It's about passing down a legacy of financial sanity. Children learn by watching. When they see their parents plan, save, and avoid debt, they inherit not just money but wisdom. Ramsey says this is one of the greatest gifts you can give, a model of responsibility and hope. Looking ahead. By funding college without loans, you break a generational cycle. You teach your children to stand tall without financial chains. And as you complete this step, you prepare for the next milestone, Baby Step 6, paying off your home early, the final barrier between you and complete freedom. In next chapter, we'll tackle the mortgage. Imagine owning your house outright. No payments, no bank, just your home, your family, and your future. Chapter 11. Pay off the home mortgage. Be ultra fit. For many families, the mortgage feels like a permanent fixture, a bill that will never disappear. 30 years of payments, interest stacked upon interest, and the belief that everyone has a mortgage. But Ramsey insists you don't have to live that way. Baby Step 6 is all about breaking that myth. Pay off your home early and become truly debt-free. Why pay it off? Some critics argue that mortgages are good debt because of tax deductions or low interest rates. Ramsey disagrees. Debt of any kind is a shackle. A mortgage might be socially acceptable, but it still means the bank owns your home until the last payment clears. Imagine life with no mortgage, no monthly payment, no interest draining your future, no fear of losing your house if hard times strike. That's freedom. He explains that the average household pays hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest over a 30-year mortgage. By attacking the principal early, you can save years of payments and keep that money in your pocket instead of the bank's vault. The method. So how do you do it? Once you've completed Baby Step 5, take every extra dollar, raises, bonuses, side income, windfalls, and throw it at the mortgage. Keep living lean. Avoid lifestyle creep. Ramsey calls it living like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. He suggests considering a 15-year mortgage instead of 30. The payments are higher, but you'll own your home in half the time and save tens of thousands in interest. But even if you already have a 30-year loan, you can still beat it down early. And here's the key: make extra payments toward the principal. What does that mean? Every mortgage payment you send is divided into two parts. One part covers interest, the bank's profit. The other part reduces the principal, which is the original amount you borrowed. In the early years of a mortgage, almost all of your monthly payment goes toward interest and very little touches the principal. But when you send in extra money and instruct the bank to apply it directly to the principal, you cut down the loan balance itself. That lower balance means the bank has less to charge interest on in the future. It's like attacking the root of the debt, not just trimming the branches. A few $100s aimed at principal today can wipe away thousands in interest tomorrow and shave years off your mortgage. Stories of victory. Ramsey shares stories of families who finished this step and shouted, "We're debt-free," with tears in their eyes. One couple paid off their $120,000 mortgage in 7 years by working extra jobs, driving used cars, and resisting the temptation to upgrade their lifestyle. They described the day they burned their mortgage papers as one of the happiest of their lives. Another family used the same discipline that destroyed their consumer debt to finish off their house. They sold a second vehicle, lived simply, and redirected everything toward the mortgage. The day they made their final payment, their children cheered around the kitchen table. They weren't just homeowners, they were free. And then there was the single mother who thought she would never see the day. For years, she chipped away at her mortgage with small extra payments, $50 here, $100 there. She worked overtime shifts, skipped luxuries, and stayed the course. 15 years later, she called Ramsey's show sobbing with joy. Her house was paid off. She said, "It wasn't fast, but was worth every sacrifice. This house is mine. No one can take it away." The psychology of ownership. There's something powerful about knowing your home is truly yours. Ramsey says people walk differently, sleep differently, even breathe differently when they no longer owe the bank. Security grows. Marriages strengthen. Instead of fear, there's peace. Instead of anxiety, there's pride. And when you own your home outright, your largest expense vanishes. Think about that. No rent, no mortgage. Suddenly, your monthly needs shrink dramatically. That stability changes everything about retirement, generosity, and legacy. Many callers say that once the mortgage is gone, their generosity increases. They give more freely, support causes they care about, and help others in ways they never imagined. Owning the home not only removes a burden, but releases a new spirit of giving. Why not invest instead? Some argue it makes more sense to invest extra money rather than paying off the mortgage. Ramsey replies, "Wealth isn't only about math, it's about behavior." Most people don't actually invest the difference, they spend it. By focusing on the mortgage, you guarantee a return equal to the interest rate and create unshakable security. Once the house is paid, then you can invest even more with freedom. Ultra-fit finances. This step is about becoming ultra-fit. You've built strength through the emergency fund, endurance through the debt snowball, and stability through retirement and college savings. Paying off the mortgage is the final conditioning exercise, the ultimate display of discipline and focus. When you finish this step, you're in rare territory. Very few people ever experience the joy of a paid-for home, but those who do describe it as life-changing. Looking ahead, with no mortgage, you are completely debt-free. Every dollar you earn is yours to save, invest, and give. That's the platform for the final step of the Total Money Makeover, building wealth and giving like never before. In the next chapter, we'll celebrate that final stage, Baby Step 7, where you enjoy wealth, live generously, and leave a legacy that outlives you. Chapter 12. Build wealth like crazy. Become the next millionaire. The debts are gone. The emergency fund is full. Retirement and college plans are in motion. The mortgage is history. You are free. But Ramsey's Total Money Makeover doesn't end with freedom. It pushes further into abundance. Baby Step 7 is the ultimate payoff. Build wealth like crazy and become outrageously generous. Why wealth matters. For many, the word wealth feels uncomfortable. We've been taught to see it as greed or excess. Ramsey flips the script. Wealth isn't about greed, it's about options. It's about dignity in retirement, freedom from worry, and the ability to bless others. Wealth gives you choices, whether that's helping a struggling neighbor, funding a mission, or simply enjoying time with your family without money stress. He says, when you have no payments, you have money. Think about it. What if every dollar you earn stayed with you? With no debt sucking life from your paycheck, wealth becomes not only possible, but inevitable. How to build it? Ramsey insists the principles don't change. Keep doing what got you here. Live on less than you make, avoid debt, save, and invest steadily. The difference now is that you're no longer fighting to get out whole. You're on top of the hill, rolling forward. Continue investing 15% of your income in retirement accounts. Add to that by maxing out opportunities, diversifying wisely, and staying consistent. Over time, compounding growth turns steady contributions into serious wealth. Ramsey also points to real estate and business ownership as ways ordinary people build wealth. But he stresses, don't leap until you are ready. The foundation, debt freedom, emergency fund, mortgage payoff, must come first. Then wealth building becomes stable, not reckless. The role of generosity. One of Ramsey's favorite parts of Baby Step 7 is giving. He says, if you live like no one else, later you can live and give like no one else. Wealth allows you to become the person who pays cash for a stranger's groceries, who writes big checks to causes you care about, who helps family without strain. Generosity isn't just about money, it's about joy. Ramsey shares story after story of listeners who, once debt-free, discovered how much fun giving can be. One man said he never felt rich until he secretly paid off someone else's debt. A woman told how she was finally able to fund scholarships at her local school. Wealth turns inward focus into outward impact. Becoming the next millionaire. Ramsey points out that most millionaires in America aren't flashy celebrities. They're ordinary people who worked ordinary jobs, lived below their means, invested consistently, and stayed out of debt. They drove used cars, skipped the status symbols, and let time and discipline do the work. The millionaire next door doesn't look like the stereotypes, but they have freedom, stability, and peace. And Ramsey insists, you can be that person. The formula isn't complicated. The challenge is sticking with it long enough. The legacy. Building wealth isn't just for you. It's for the generations that follow. Imagine leaving your children not bills, but blessings. Imagine funding your grandchildren's education, supporting causes long after you're gone, and creating a ripple effect that lasts beyond your lifetime. That's the legacy of Baby Step 7. The finish line. This is the moment when the Total Money Makeover comes full circle. You began with despair, maybe even shame. You clawed your way through discipline, sacrifice, and perseverance. Now you stand not only free, but strong. You've built wealth, and you're prepared to use it for good. In the next chapter, we'll wrap everything together, reflecting on the journey and celebrating the life you've built through this makeover. Chapter 13. Live like no one else. The journey is nearly complete. You've walked through denial, faced the truth about debt, built your safety nets, and crushed the chains of loans. You've invested for the future, secured your children's education, and even paid off your home. Now at last comes the payoff, living like no one else. What it really means. Throughout this book, Ramsey has repeated the phrase, live like no one else, so later you can live like no one else. At first, it sounded like a riddle. But now, standing at the end of the baby steps, it makes perfect sense. The first part meant sacrifice. driving used cars when others drove shiny new ones, cooking at home while friends order takeaways, saying no to holidays on credit cards, choosing discipline over impulse. That was living differently in order to escape the trap. Now comes the reward, living differently in freedom. Imagine walking through life without debt. Imagine a bank account that grows every month instead of shrinking. Imagine saying yes to dreams without consulting a lender. That's the second half of the phrase, living like no one else once the work is done. Stories of freedom. Ramsey shares the stories of families who finished the steps. They didn't just survive, they thrived. One couple, once drowning in loans, now take family holidays paid in cash. They give generously to their church and community. They're not worried about the next bill, they're excited about the next opportunity. Another family threw a mortgage-burning party. Friends gathered as they lit the papers and shouted with joy. They said the laughter that night felt different, lighter, because they knew they would never again send a check to a bank for the roof over their heads. And countless callers to Ramsey's show described the same theme: peace. They sleep better, they fight less, they dream bigger. Debt had been the loudest voice in their lives. Now, silence, and with it, possibility. The ripple effect. Living like no one else doesn't stop with you. Children grow up watching parents who budget, save, and give. They inherit not only money, but wisdom. Your grandchildren feel the impact of decisions you made decades earlier. Generosity spreads beyond your home into schools, charities, and lives you may never meet. Ramsey reminds us, this is how you change a family tree. Not with grand speeches, but with steady choices, choices that break the cycle of debt and replace it with legacy. The joy of generosity. With wealth comes responsibility, but also joy. Ramsey insists that giving is the most fun you can have with money. Buying gifts without stress, funding missions without hesitation, helping friends without regret, these are the marks of someone who truly lives like no one else. The irony is clear. By saying no for a season, you now get to say yes for a lifetime. The final picture. This step is not a destination, it's a way of life. You keep investing, keep saving, keep giving. You stay intentional because freedom can slip if you forget the discipline that brought you here. But the difference is staggering. You no longer live in fear. You live in strength, in purpose, in joy. This is what the Total Money Makeover was all about. Not just surviving, not just getting by, but thriving. To live with peace, to give with freedom, and to build a legacy that outlives you. You've reached the end of Dave Ramsey's The Total Money Makeover. Together, we've walked through denial, faced hard truths, and embraced a plan that millions have used to transform their lives. The message has been clear from start to finish. Money is not just about numbers, it's about behavior. It's about having the courage to live differently, the discipline to stay the course, and the vision to build a legacy that outlives you. Here are the 7 baby steps, the heart of the makeover. 1. Save $1,000 as a starter emergency fund. 2. Pay off all debt, except the house, using the debt snowball. 3. Build a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. 4. Invest 15% of your income for retirement. 5. Save for your children's college without debt. 6. Pay off your home early. 7. Build wealth and give generously. These steps aren't magic, they're simple, proven actions. But when you follow them, step by step, the results feel nothing short of miraculous. To you, the listener, thank you. Thank you for giving your time and attention to this journey. Thank you for daring to imagine a life without debt and for choosing to believe that freedom is possible. Now the call is yours. Don't just let this story inspire you for a moment, put it into practice. Start your Total Money Makeover today. Take the first step, no matter how small, and keep going until you've walked them all. And when you've finished, when you are living like no one else, remember to pass it on. Teach your children. Encourage your friends. Share this message so that others can find the same freedom. If you found this audiobook valuable, please subscribe, share it, and spread the word. Your support helps bring hope to others who are ready for change. And finally, carry this truth with you. You are not stuck. You are not powerless. With discipline, faith, and persistence, you can take control of your money, your future, and your legacy. Live like no one else, so later, you can live and give like no one else.